everybody, and welcome back to my channel, and welcome if you are new here. My name is Andrea.M, and this is the Oz Files. The truth is out back. And if you're wondering why there's a slight change of location today, it's because Charlie, Yorick, and I are coming to you from the Voodoo Room, where we may continue to do the Oz Files if you guys like this setup. So we're coming to you from the Voodoo Room today for our very, very creepy, true and place that you can visit in Australia for today's story. However, before we get into today's location and stories, I would like to ask you all to do me a huge favour and haunt the like button, jump scare the subscribe button and ring its bell, and also like, comment and share with your friends. It's subscribers just like you who help me to continue to grow my YouTube channel and make videos for you guys with this good spooky content just like this one. So without further ado, let's get into today's location in Australia. And the location we're visiting today is Junee in south central New South Wales, close to the town of Wagga Wagga in the fertile Riverina district. It boasts a beautiful country landscape, a great place to stop overnight if you're travelling the Melbourne to Sydney rail line, a railway museum, heritage streetscapes and chocolate tours, and they are just a few of the delights that you can discover in Junee. And as a quaint and cottagecore as this all seems, there is one place in particular that Junee, New South Wales is most famous for, and what keeps the tourist trade rocking year round. And it's this place, the historical Monte Cristo homestead. A beautiful and meticulously kept Australian heritage homestead and museum. At first sight, the story behind this house is one of success and good fortune and a happy family, but looks can be deceiving. Behind the scenes, things happen that could not be spoken of in daylight hours. Small wonder that the Monte Cristo homestead has the notorious reputation of being Australia's most haunted house. Christopher William Crawley was a farmer who bought 2 parcels of land in the town in Junee to build his family home. The first few years were a struggle for the Crawleys. They lived in a slab hut and Christopher had trouble feeding his family. But his luck changed in 1878 when the Great Southern Railway line opened. He gathered all the funds that he could pull together and bought a licence to build the Railway Hotel opposite to the soon-to-be-opened railway station. And this was an extremely good move for the Crawleys indeed. The village of Junee only consisted of the Crawleys Hotel and the adjoining railway station and a few scattered slab huts that other people were building. Through this venture, the Crawleys would go from just scraping by to being the wealthiest family in town. Not only did this change the fortunes of the Crawleys, but the entire town benefited enormously from the travellers and the agricultural trade. Crawley became very rich, and this led him to becoming also one of the town's founding fathers. He was also much loved in the town for his generous nature and his sense of civic responsibility. So far it's all sounding really positive and happy, and the Crawleys were amazing people. So why did Monte Cristo homestead become so very haunted? Let's delve into a little history, shall we? Prior to the construction of the new homestead in 1885, the family, father, mother and 7 children lived in a small brick cottage. The original slab hut was demolished and turned into a big stable for his prized horses. The small brick cottage, also referred to as the original homestead, still exists. That house was turned into the servants' quarters. The new home, a 2-storey house built in the late Victorian style, which I love, just putting that out there, became an ultimate status symbol, and it was because it was built on a hill and it was overlooking the entire town. So everything was going pretty well. The family and the town were prospering until Christopher Crawley died in his own homestead on December 14, 1910. He died from a combination of heart failure and septicemia, also known as blood poisoning. The septicemia had been caused by a carbuncle on his neck, and it got infected from rubbing against his starched collar, and ouch, I could imagine this would have been really painful for Christopher Crawley, and it would have left him in an extreme amount of pain. And back then, as you can imagine, and with such a remote location at this time, medical services were not what they have today, so it's easy to see how it got so infected. His wife, Elizabeth, couldn't cope with her husband's death, and she fell into a very deep depression. She essentially became a hermit, never leaving the home, and spent most of her time up in the attic, where she built a small chapel. In her remaining 23 years, she only left the house twice, and she died in the house at the age of 92 on August 12, 1933, due to a ruptured appendix. The last member of the Crawley family left the house in 1948, and the house would remain empty for more than a decade. There were several caretakers at the house trying to keep an eye on things, but unfortunately they couldn't prevent the place from being vandalised, and all the original furnishings were taken out of the house and sold. The house remained in this poor condition until Monte Cristo Homestead was bought by Reginald and Olive Ryan in 1963. The Ryans would then pour money back into the homestead and restore it to its former glory. They turned it into a museum for tours, including a doll museum, along with its own antique and gift shop. Reginald died in 2014, but his wife Olive still stands strong. When the Ryans moved into the homestead, they immediately noticed something strange was going on. When they went up to the house with their belongings, including their cat and dog, they noticed that the animals did not want to go into the house. In fact, they both ran away from it. And later, when they had an evening out, they had noticed on returning home that all the lights were on in the house as they approached, but all the lights were off when they actually opened the door and went inside. This soon led to the discovery of the homestead being haunted by at least 10 ghosts, and all these ghosts are still in the homestead today. Some of them were more prominent than others. One thing for sure is animals do not fare well at Monte Cristo Homestead. On a number of occasions, the Ryans would return home to find their livestock and their pets had suddenly passed away of unknown causes. Christopher Crowley's ghost now haunts the room in which he died. His spirit is as kind as ever, however, his wife Elizabeth, on the other hand, hasn't changed much after death. She still rules the house with an iron fist, judging everyone who dares to enter her house. And if she doesn't like you, she'll try to scare you out with ice-cold air falling on your skin. Then we have the ghosts of the two maids. Christopher Crowley, while he was a kind and a good man, he was also a bit of a Jack the Lad, bit of a philanderer, and it's rumoured he had gotten two of his housemaids pregnant, one of them taking her own life by jumping to her death from the balcony. She was said to have been pregnant when she died. She hit the stairs and was instantly killed. Her ghost still haunts the veranda, and a ghostly bloodstain still marks the spot where she met her end. The second pregnant maid actually survived and gave birth to a son, which she named Harold. When Harold was a young boy, he was involved with a terrible accident on the premises of Monte Cristo Homestead. Harold was hit by a coach. The child survived the accident but sustained head trauma which disabled him for life. The poor boy was kept on, but he was locked in chains in the coach room. And if you go to Monte Cristo Homestead today, they will take you on the tour over to where the coach room is, and Harold's shackles are still on the wall from where he was chained up. So if you ever go to Monte Cristo Homestead, please make sure that you check out the coach room, because Harold's chains are still in the coach room. You can actually see them and touch them and everything. They're still there. Local children would mock him because he would scream all day. They called him a monster, and the children of Junee would challenge each other to find him and pester him, which I find really sad. Like, he's already had this really bad start to his life. Like, when he was born, he was a completely normal child, and then he's been hit by this coach and it's given him this head injury. And instead of, just trying to nurture him and help him as much as they could, they chained him up. And back those days, it wasn't really that uncommon to do this with a family member who wasn't quite right, because I think they really just didn't know what to do with them. And, as we expressed before with the medical side of things, the mental health side of things was, just didn't exist. So this is what they would do. They would lock them away. They would chain them up and subject them to very inhuman conditions. And, people wonder why these people went mad and why these places end up so haunted. It's because of this kind of energy. So here's poor Harold with his head injury, chained to a wall and being tormented and pestered every day by the local school children. So that would have just been absolutely horrific. Poor Harold. I hope if I ever do get to go to Monte Cristo, I would ideally love to just tell Harold how sorry I am for the way he was treated by his mother and by the school children. So they would come in and they would pester Harold, and poor Harold eventually was put away in an asylum after he was found by the authorities still chained to his mother's bed, and this was after his mother had passed away and she had been dead for a number of days. And can you imagine the state that Harold would have been in by then? Ugh. Poor Harold. He died at the asylum, but he still haunts the grounds of Monte Cristo Homestead. He makes his presence known by the sounds of chains. And then there is the coach house. It is also haunted by a young stable boy named Morris. Now, Morris didn't feel well one day and decided to stay in bed at the coach house. His master at the time didn't approve of the boy sleeping in, so he decided to teach him a lesson and pull a prank on him, and he set fire to the boy's straw mattress, thinking that would make him jump up and come to work. But Morris was way too ill, he couldn't get up, and he died in his bed. He was burned to death. And up until today, people can still hear his screams. So we can see where plenty of the Crawley staff met tragic ends and would also leach into the Crowley family as well, with Christopher Crowley dying of the blood poisoning and the cardiac issues. And also, tragically, Crawley's infant daughter Ethel died in 1917 because her nursemaid had dropped her on the stairs. Now, the nurse claimed that she was pushed by an unseen force, but she wasn't believed. And today, children who visit the museum become irritable and upset when they enter the stairs. And some guests have said that they have felt like they've been pushed on their backs on the stairs, just like the maid was. So some claim also to feel a childlike hand slip into theirs when they go into the rooms upstairs. A more recent spectre is that of Jack Simpson. He was one of the home's caretakers, and at some point he was shot to death in 1960 on the porch of the house by another man. And the other man had been watching Alfred Hitchcock, his classic movie Psycho. He'd watched it 3 times before committing this crime. And the words "Die Jack, ha ha" were carved into the shed door, and they can still be seen on the shed door today. Other paranormal activity at Monte Cristo Homestead includes lights turning on and off, guests experiencing feelings of nausea, overwhelming sadness, and some people have even succumbed to fainting spells while on tour of Monte Cristo Homestead. There are disembodied voices, unexplained mists, some poltergeist activity as well. Monte Cristo Homestead today has been featured on several paranormal television shows. It has been featured in Scream Test, Ghost Hunters International, and My Ghost Story, and now the Oz-Files! You can visit Monte Cristo Homestead on Friday to Monday from 10 a.m. to 4 p.m. Every Saturday evening from 6 p.m. there's a ghost tour, and brave souls can even spend the night here. Would you dare to spend the night at this beautiful historic home? And the answer to that is heck yeah. I've always wanted to go to Monte Cristo Homestead. It's a future investigation I would love to take my Clarence Valley Paranormal team to in the future. But we're going to need help to get there. So, If you would like to see us get the wits scared out of us at Monte Cristo Homestead, if you can get this video to 1,000 likes, the CVP team and I will go to Monte Cristo Homestead and do an overnight investigation there. So start smashing that like button, and your subscriptions will also help get us there faster too. So if you've been watching and you haven't subscribed yet, please subscribe. As I've said before, it's subscribers like you that help us to grow and get out there and bring you guys some awesome content. As for today's Oz Files, the truth is OUTBACK, that's going to do it. And I'd love to know your thoughts on Monte Cristo Homestead. Do you believe it's haunted? Have you ever been there? If you have, did you experience anything? Drop it in the comments section below. And until next time, stay safe everybody. And remember, sleep tight.